First time since they spent their honeymoon at Broadlands in July. Well, then the Prince was the bridegroom. Yesterday he was godfather to Lord and Lady Romsey's 5.5-month-old son, one of 4 godparents which included the Duchess of Kent. It was a private ceremony which still managed to become a public event at a church now getting accustomed to its many royal visits. Prince Charles was best man there at Lord and Lady Romsey's wedding. Their son is named Nicholas Louis Charles, Nicholas after Lord Romsey's brother and Louis after Lord Mountbatten, both of whom were killed by the same IRA bomb 2 years ago, and the Charles, of course, after the Prince himself.
The White Horse, an exceptional Hampshire base in the heart of Romsey. A fine old coaching inn, converted with panache and wit. It's elegant, spacious and versatile. And upstairs, the bedrooms range from a stunning penthouse to cosy family rooms, some usefully interconnecting. Afternoon tea, done properly here. Sets you up nicely for a stroll around Romsey's surprisingly diverse shops. And its sights, including, of course, the historic Abbey and the River Test flowing through. And the New Forest is on your doorstep. Back home, you'll feel a cocktail coming on in the friendly bar, followed by a really good dinner from up-and-coming chef Chris Rock.
We produce modern British food, locally sourced, clean and well cooked.
In one of the most attractive and enjoyable brasseries I know.
Caroline Noakes.
Mr. Speaker, what matters in this place is not just language, but also tone. I noted that my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, earlier spoke of political cowardice. I wish to speak to him of political bravery. Politics is the art of the possible. I genuinely believe it is possible for him to get a new deal. Further, I believe it is possible for it to pass this House. But it would be politically brave not simply to reach across the House, but brave to put his arms around the House.
I thank my right honourable friend, and I will do my best. I will do my best to do, Mr. Speaker, it's an invitation that is clearly not universally welcomed, but I do share her idealism. I do think there is a chance for us now to do our duty by our constituents and to put this matter to rest, and in a way that I think will greatly alleviate the tensions that are now current in our country. And I think it will be a great thing for our country if we do that. So I will follow her urgings and do my best to show the spirit that she asked for.
Caroline Noakes.
The need to prevent the build-up of green algae in the Solent means that local authorities like Test Valley Borough Council cannot grant planning permission for children's homes, for care facilities and to small self-builders. There is a blockage in the system, and I would like to urge my right honourable friend to get out his plunger and make sure that DEFRA, MHCLG, Natural England and the Environment Agency are all working together to protect our waterways, but to make sure that housing commitments can be met.
Mr. Speaker, we will make sure that the ministerial dino rod is employed to sort out the blockage that she is experiencing. But it is very important that we deal simultaneously with nitrate neutrality, that we satisfy our environmental needs, whilst also ensuring that her community gets the housing that it needs. I think there is a way forward, and I'd be happy to take it up with her.
In the Victorian era, Britain changed as never before. It was the time of great inventors, great engineers, but above all, great businessmen, entrepreneurs.
And one of the best examples was the pioneer photographer, Francis Frith.
It was in the 1860s that Francis Frith embarked upon a monumental mission using the newly invented photographic camera. He wanted to document every city, every town, and every village in the land.
I'm tracing the footsteps of this remarkable man and his team of photographers.
Using their pictures as my guide, I'll be travelling the length and breadth of the country, finding out what has altered and what has stayed the same. And along the way, I'll be taking my own photos to try and capture the mood of the place as it is now.
That's great. Welcome to Britain's first photo album.
Just north of Southampton, on the banks of the River Test, is the small market town of Romsey. And it was here, in 1898, that the Frith photographic team captured this beautifully composed image of the marketplace. Frith took several pictures of Romsey's town centre, but it's the market square I need to find.
Can you help me with this photograph? Where do you think that is?
Is this a trick question?
No, it's not a trick question. I'm trying to find out where it is.
That's a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
Can I ask where you got it from?
It's a Victorian picture,
Yes.
very famous photographer called Frith.
Okay.
He took this, and my job is to find out exactly where it was from.
Oh, that's easy.
All right, go on then.
Just round the corner, my dear, and you'll see the statue.
The star of the show here is Lord Palmerston, who was Britain's Prime Minister not once but twice in the 1850s and 60s. He's very much the local lad made good. But when you look at the photo closely, it contains clues to one of Romsey's traditional industries. And that's something I want to discuss with local historian Phoebe Merrick. Even today, looking around the modern town, there's no getting away from the fact that this town seems to enjoy its beer. Two references to breweries here. Here, with the off-licence, and here with the old pub. Romsey was famous for pubs, wasn't it?
Oh, very much so. When we were looking to do the history of pubs in Romsey, we found 84 of them.
84? It's a small town, though. How many
About
people?
5,000 people.
So it's a pub for every family, but not quite. But I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, mind you, I think many of them were no more than beer houses, and often it was wrapped up in the front room, and the wife ran it as an additional source of income. Not like now, when if you run a pub, it's a full-time job.
But why should Romsey need so many pubs?
Because you're on a main road from Winchester to the west of England. You're on the road between Salisbury and Southampton. All those travellers need refreshment, as do their horses, of course.
People sometimes, in those days, would think of Romsey as a place to get drunk. Is that right?
Oh, yes. I mean, the old saying is, so drunk he must have been to Romsey. The alternative is, it's a straight road to Romsey and zigzag back from there.
Time to turn attentions to Frith, though, and what he was trying to do with this particular photo of Romsey. Right, well, I suppose what's surprising is that the Frith photograph does not show the Abbey Church.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Because that is so much the dominant feature of the whole of Romsey. Almost everywhere you stand, you get a glimpse of that church. Frith managed to find somewhere that didn't have it. He got a good photograph, though, because the way it comes to a point with Lord Palmerston's statue as the central focus. But nonetheless, to get a photograph from anywhere in Romsey without a glimpse of the Abbey Church is quite hard work.
The 12th century Abbey, once a house for Benedictine nuns, is the most famous site in Romsey, and I want to give it a proper place in my photo. Come on, cars. This way, sir. Cars. The moment you start taking a photograph, cars. Thank you very much. OK, now we can go. Right, this is it. We want cars in the picture. So there it is, different from the Frith photo. Mine is of the best feature of Romsey. This splendid building was already 600 years old when Lord Palmerston was around, and I think this is a worthy addition to our album. Before I leave town, there's just time for a short pit stop. I hope you understand this is purely for research purposes. A taste of Romsey, now fully updated. In 2008, it looked like the local tradition of beer making might have disappeared. But 18 months ago, with the arrival of a brand new brewery, the captivating smell of hops is back in the air. The owner, Nigel Welsh, is going to introduce me to the mysteries of the process.
You're going to come up to the mash tun and hopefully regulate the flow of the sparge.
The mash tun and regulate the flow of the sparge. What on earth's he talking about? Still, it certainly smells interesting. So this is the water, hot water.
Hot liquor.
And what's liquor?
Liquor is water. We don't use the word water. It's dirty stuff.
Going over what's down there?
That's the malted barley.
Right, now what do I do?
Well, you're going to check this dial over here.
Right.
And make sure the regulated flow of 30 litres a minute is going through.
Well, that says 35.4.
Oh, then if you want to just adjust this lever here.
Right.
And close it down a bit.
Right, there we are. How does this compare with an old brewery in Victorian times? What would that have been like?
In Victorian times, it would have been a traditional tower brewery, very few pumps involved, and a lot more manpower. The whole process brewing today will take 8 hours, and then in 7 days' time, you'll have beer ready to drink.
That's all very well, but I haven't got a week to wait for the good bit. Fortunately, though, Nigel has one he made earlier. It's not bad. It's really good. And whilst I'm here, it would be foolish not to have a quick sip of the bottle-conditioned house special. No, that's OK. Right. Oh, and there's the deceptively strong local porter.
You like another?
Have another 3, I think.
And the history just keeps on flowing. Winchester is an ancient city on the banks of the River Itchen, and like many British towns and cities, it can trace its roots back to Roman times. Now, the Romans invaded around 2,000 years ago. About 30 years after that, they realised the importance of this river, and they set up a town called Venta Belgarum. The river was giving them trade, it was giving them drinking water, it was good for cooking, it was great for defence. And here is the last remaining visible sign of their existence. You can see there the Roman foundations. And after the Romans left, the Saxons took over. It's not much they'd recognise today, but the building I'm heading to next is one King Alfred himself would definitely be familiar with. Winchester City Mill is the oldest working water mill in the country. It had a bit of a facelift in the 1700s, but records date it back to the Saxon period. The flour that's milled here now is pretty much identical to that which King Alfred would have enjoyed 1,000 years ago. But the real magic of the mill happens downstairs. Rick Weeks is the manager here. Oh, wow. It couldn't be more about the river. It's on the river, it's built up from the river. Wonderful. So this is entirely reliant on the Itchen.
It is, powered entirely by the River Itchen.
That's astonishing. So how fast is the water travelling?
This is about 20 miles an hour at the moment.
That's pretty quick, isn't it? And look at this wheel. Can I come and see it?
Of course.
This is blowing my mind. How long's that been there?
This wheel is relatively modern, but it's an exact replica of what was here before.
It's unbelievable. Do you find yourself hypnotised by it sometimes?
I do, actually, yeah. And if you've had a really long day, it's really nice to come down here and look at this.
Yeah. Some of these beams, I've noticed, look really ancient. How long would they have been here?
They are. Many of them were felled prior to the Norman conquest.
Before the Norman conquest, and it's still in situ?
Still in situ here now, yeah.
That is staggering. And I mean, I know the river's your friend because it powers the mill, but I gather it's also a bit of a foe. You've had a bit of a ding-dong with it.
Can be. We had a very bad flood here in 2014, and this area was completely inundated for 3.5 months.
Really?
And everything you see was destroyed. We've had to rebuild all of it.
I guess that's kind of part of the mill's history, though. It's always a question of maintaining it, preserving it for future generations.
Indeed, indeed. It's a constant routine of maintenance here.
And a little bird told me something about otters. Is that true?
It is, it is. We have otters on the river here. They were reintroduced about 25 years ago, and they're doing really, really well. And we have a camera system that records them. To see something that's so wild and elusive in a relatively urban environment is brilliant.
It's the heart of the town, isn't it?
It is.
And the heart of the river.
Yeah.
The Hospital of St Cross is one of the UK's oldest charitable institutions. It isn't actually a medical building at all. It's England's most glorious almshouse. It was the brainchild of Henri Dubois, who was the Bishop of Winchester and the grandson of William the Conqueror. He founded it in a time of famine around 900 years ago as a home for poor men who became known as the Brothers of St Cross. I'm meeting up with Brother John. Brother John.
Morning, Ollie. Good to see you.
How nice to see you.
And you.
Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
You look splendid. I'm worried you're not wearing shoes, though. Are you not cold?
No. It's easy for me not to put socks on.
But this is absolutely astonishing. I'm just taking a glimpse over your shoulder. So impressive.
Yeah.
So Henry himself, why exactly did he set all this up?
Well, basically, it was for the 13 poor, decrepit old fellas like myself who couldn't look after ourselves.
You look great.
And more importantly, he fed 100 poor men daily. At the end of the meal, whatever was left over, they were able to take back into the city and share with their families.
These charitable acts extended to the wayfarer's dole, which was a cup of beer and a piece of bread. It was given to pilgrims passing through, and it's a tradition that's carried on today. But only if you ask for it. It's all very Wizard of Oz. I'll give it a knock.
Hello, sir.
Oh, hello. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How
Wonderful.
are you?
Well, I'm great. I'm here for my, if I'm allowed, for my wayfarer's dole. Please.
Certainly. I'll fetch you some.
Thank you very much. It's terribly interesting. I never thought this would be real, if I'm honest, but look, there's actually something coming. Thank you so much. So this is the beer.
Beer,
and
bread.
this is the bread. Oh, I'll have a little sip of the beer if I'm allowed. Cheers. That's delicious. Thank you. So what's the history of it? Because, I mean, hospital and hospitality, they're kind of words that ring together.
Yeah, Henry Dubois brought the tradition over from France.
Yeah.
He was a Clunic monk. It started in 1132 for pilgrims that were travelling across the country. They could come in and claim a day's supply of bread and beer. They had the beer because the water, you couldn't drink the water in them days, so
that purified it?
It purified it. And the bread had to be white because the pilgrims had to have the best, and
Of
the
course.
white bread was the best.
Is that right? So you really do treat your guests with real respect and reverence. I think it's a brilliant tradition, and I love the idea of sharing your community, but I'm due in matins, actually, but I gather that dogs aren't allowed in matins.
No, sadly, they're not.
Would it be OK, and thank you for my Wayfarer's doll, if I leave little Busby, who's crawling around here somewhere? Would that be all right? Buzz, you going to stay here? Thank you. Oh, lucky you. He's straight in there. I think he smelt the bread. Marvellous. Thank you very much
All right,
indeed.
thank you.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Walking through the medieval Hospital of St Cross feels like passing through a time warp. But it's still very much a living community. It's home to 23 brothers who respect the ancient traditions. Every day, unless the brothers are unwell, they're duty-bound to attend matins.
It's really astonishing.
And I will give a white stone.
Although the hospital is a Christian foundation, the brothers do not belong to a religious order. To become a brother, a man needs to be at least 65, of good character, and be able-bodied. Today, they come from all walks of life and all parts of the country.
Hi, Ollie. I'm Brother George Watkinson.
Lovely. Brother George has invited me to take a peek at his accommodation.
I'm just catching a glimpse as we come out. This is not a bad place to live.
It isn't a bad place, is it? It's a great place to live, I have to say.
It's so striking. I mean, they really treated people well. And these were the almshouses, were they?
Exactly right, yeah. Built by Henry Beaufort in around about 1445.
The brothers living here contribute to their accommodation according to their means. Each one has a one-bedroom flat with a separate kitchen and a shower room. Centuries ago, these lodgings would have seemed luxurious in the extreme.
Come in then, Ollie.
Oh, George,
Come
this
and
is
sit
lovely.
down.
This is great. So what's it like living here?
Oh, it's only one word, fantastic.
Really?
Truly wonderful.
Sitting here, it's lovely and cosy today, but I can't help thinking what it would have been like, you know, in centuries gone by for the people who lived here.
Well, I don't think it would have been too much different. The thing is, you'd have had a coal fire.
Yep,
here.
that would have been here.
But other than that, I think even in those days, they made life as comfortable as they possibly could.
Yeah, and it is a lovely setting with the river. How important is the river?
It's very important. The function of the Lochburn, which is the stream that surrounds all of St Cross, was in the early days would have been for Surrey, dispensing from the Lewes.
Yeah.
But another interesting feature of it is, if you look at the brothers' kitchen, we have what we call a meat room. And what they managed to do there, to keep the room cool, they diverted the Lochburn under the floor. It snakes across the floor and keeps the temperature about 8 degrees lower than the rest of the room.
Intriguing.
All by diverting the Lochburn.
It's quite a thing to imagine who else might have lived here down the ages. How connected do you feel to those people who've come before you?
You cannot help but feel connected because you're living in the same place as they lived. It's a great feeling. It really is. You're part of the tradition.
And I can't help noticing before I go, I've got to ask about the guitar amp that's behind you, Brother George. Are you a bit of a rocker?
I have been. I will confess I did play rock for a number of years.
Oh, I love it.
But then I decided to learn to play the guitar properly. Oh, I couldn't have said that.
Do you know what? This is all sounding more and more idyllic to me, George. I can't believe that I have to wait. I'm not going to say how many more years until I'm 65, but a few.
I'm going to get your name down.
Yeah, would you?
I'll get your name down.
Put a word in. Thank you, George.
Good to see you,
So
Ollie.
lovely to see you.
Do come back and see us.
Promise I will. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant.
He's been very good.
Oh,
Very,
thank
very
you.
good.
Hello, matey. Hello. Good boy. Did you miss me? Yeah. Time to crack on with the Riverwalk. I know. Well, you seem to know where you're going. Come on.
This is BBC Radio 4, where now it's time for Bells on Sunday, which this morning comes from Winchester Cathedral. The bells are the only diatonic ring of 14 in the world, comprising the original 1936 set of 12, augmented by 2 trebles in 1993. The 8 largest bells still hang in the old 1734 wooden frame, which moves around as the bells are being rung, making excellent ringing very difficult to achieve. We hear them now ringing a plain course of Erin sextuples. Those were the bells from Winchester Cathedral.